Hi, welcome to this demo of the Spectrum Protect version 8.1.10 capability to back up the database to the cloud. We're talking about the Spectrum Protect DB2 database, which acts as our metadata repository. In this demo, I'll show you how to use the Spectrum Protect administrator command line to do database backups to the cloud, and then how to use the command line to restore those same databases back to your system. I'll be utilizing an S3 connection to the cloud. From the DSM ADMC admin command line, we're going to go ahead and issue all of those commands to set up a database backup to the cloud. So we're going to start with the define connection command. And this is a new command introduced just for this cloud connections. So define connection, the connection name, which is the name of the connection we just created, which happens to be an S3 connection out to the cloud. We're going to have the cloud URL. We're going to have the identity, which is the access key of the object storage. We're going to have password, which is our secret key. And then we're going to have the bucket name, which is a bucket that already exists out on that on-prem storage. Next, we're going to issue the validate cloud command, which is validate cloud connection equal connection we just created. And this is going to validate both the URL, the credentials, and the bucket for the cloud connection we just created. As you can see, it comes back as verified. Now we're going to do a define device class, and this will be the define dev class. We're going to give the dev class a name. Dev type equals cloud, and then connection equals connection that we just created. The next command is the same as what you'd set up for any of the other device classes, and that's your standard set DB recovery. So we're going to issue set DB recovery, the device class name, the password, and this password is critical because this is going to be used for encrypting the master keys. And if you lose this, you're really going to be in trouble. So make sure you preserve this password. Some other default options, protect key equals yes, and this is not allowed to be set to no for the cloud. Num strings is set to 1 by default, but I recommend you set that to something higher. You can check out our documentation on that. The reason for that is the higher number of streams for your backup is going to dictate the number of streams for your restore. And the number of streams will ultimately impact both your backup and restore performance. Another option, compress equals no, and this cannot be set to yes if you're using the default of encrypt equals yes. Now, when you do this encryption, this is actually going to be the encryption done by DB2, so it'll encrypt that database backup before it's sent out to the cloud. We're also going to send out the dev config file, the volhist file, the encrypted master keys. There's a couple queries you can issue to see the information that we've just defined. The first is a query connection. You can also do a query connection format equals detailed, and this will also show you the cloud type, and if you entered a descriptor, it'll show you that information. There's the query dev class, and then if you want more information, you can also do query dev class, and then give it the device class name, format equals detailed. The final command to kick off a database backup will be to issue the backup DB dev class equals the name of the dev class we created. If you did want to add this to an administrative schedule, then you would also want to go ahead and define that administrative schedule so that this backup happened on a regular basis. You can issue a query process to see if the database backup has completed. You'll notice in this first query process the name of the 4 volumes that we're writing the database backup to, and this was dictated by the num streams that we specified in our backup command. And we'll issue a few of those until we see that it has actually completed. Once it's completed, we'll go ahead and halt the Spectrum Protect server so that we can simulate a restore. We're going to go through a few database restore scenarios. The first one will be the most basic case, and then we'll go through some DR cases. So you want to go to your instant directory, and for this most basic case, you're going to issue dsmserv space restore space db, the password, and then prompt equals no. And this is assuming that you still have access to your volume history and dev config files. So basically we'll go out to the cloud that those files are pointing to. We'll see the volumes that we just wrote to, and we'll start doing a restore directly from the cloud. Our num streams was set to 4, and we had 1 volume per stream, but for larger databases you might see more than 1 volume per stream being written. So this small database will restore really rapidly. And once we've restored that, we're now going to do a disaster recovery case. So we're going to go out and manually delete off the volhist and dev config files so that you can see what happens when those no longer exist on the server you're doing the database restore to. If we were to issue the same dsmserv restore db password equals prompt equals no, you'll see we have a new error response that says that because we can't find the dev config file on the local system, we're actually going to go and suggest, starting in Spectrum Protect version 8.1.10, that it might be possible to download a dev config file from the cloud environment. And so in order to do that, you would have to provide the cloud credentials. So now we're going to try issuing a dsmserv restore db password equals the normal server password, prompt equals no, cloud URL equals ID equals, and then put in the access key, cloud pass equals, and this is going to be the cloud secret key password, and then the bucket name equals, and cloud type equals S3, and then go ahead and press enter. This time when we connect to the cloud, we're actually going to see 4 different locations for 4 different Spectrum Protect servers that have backed up to this bucket. We want to restore the server with the name Today Server. So we're going to go ahead and choose number 4. And what you're going to see is we're going to copy the dev config and volhist file from the cloud storage back to the Spectrum Protect server, and where we restore this to is going to be specified in the dsmserv.opt file. So we copy back that dev config and volhist file, and now we're going to download and copy the master key file that we stored in the cloud. In the cloud, that was called enc key file, and when we download and copy it over to the Spectrum Protect server, if there was already a key file out there, we will rename that old one, restore the version that we just downloaded from the cloud. You'll see the number of volumes is the same as the value we specified for our num streams when we did the database backup. Okay, now that that restore is done, I'll show you one more case. If you issue that same dsmserv restore db password equals prompt equals no, cloud URL ID equals, cloud pass equals, bucket name equals, cloud type equals S3, but you add in server name equals. In this case, if there are multiple servers that did their backup to that bucket out in the cloud, you won't be prompted for which server you want to restore. It will go ahead and restore, in our case, the Today server. So in summary, I've showed you how to do a Spectrum Protect database backup, and that's our metadata catalog, out to the cloud. I've also showed you how to do restores both in just your normal instance as well as in a DR case from the cloud. And all of these backups and restores were utilizing an S3 connection. Do check out my video where I show you how to do this for an Azure connection. Thank you very much.